at the entrance to the 9th annual Cobble Beach Concours d'Elegance, and it's an overcast day, just a hint of rain in the air, but at the same time, the people are here and there's some great cars to have a look at, some I have never seen before. So come on, let's take a look. I'm here with Mike Bajoni, who has a very special and unique vehicle, a 1927 Bugatti
Type 35B Grand Prix car.
In other words, this is a racing car.
It is.
It is.
This was the Formula One car in the mid-20s. This is what they looked like.
And you could buy this right out of the showroom.
You actually could. In fact, you could even buy it outfitted for street use with a charging system, full electrics, and even a starter motor, which this car does not have
so you
because it's a racer.
With the crank.
Yes.
Oh my.
Use with the crank or a bump start.
Okay, well yeah, second gear, slip the clutch and away you go.
That's right.
That's right.
We usually use the crank.
You don't want to touch the clutch on a car this old. But has this been restored?
It has. It was restored, boy, from the late 70s to the early 80s. So that car has, the restoration is 40 years old, actually.
Really? Well, it has aged extremely well.
Thank you.
Now, I noticed that one of the interesting features is that the body panels are all wired together. If we look along the bottom, we can see that the lower panels are all wired together. Was that part of the design?
It absolutely was, and it's not a well understood part of the design. If all you wanted to do was keep a few pieces of sheet metal on the chassis, you don't need all those fasteners and all that wiring. Bugatti actually included all the fasteners and all the wiring because he wanted the sheet metal to enhance the rigidity of the whole structure. Something not understood by other automotive engineers of the day.
Now, Bugatti was both an engineer and an artisan, wasn't he?
He was, although never a formally trained engineer.
Right.
He just figured it out by the seat of his pants.
Now, you were telling me earlier that there isn't a piece of metal that is cast that isn't finished.
That's right. Bugatti had two reasons for that. One was the artist side of his disposition. He just liked the look of a finished piece of metal better than an unfinished piece of metal. The other thing is that he knew that surface treating it in some way would inhibit cracking or failure of the casting.
Now, even the wheels are unique because they're not made of steel, are they?
They're made of aluminum, and they're completely unique in their day. Race cars in this day all had wire wheels. Bugatti cast his wheels out of aluminum and had a couple of unique features. One was that the brake drums were cast integrally with the wheel. So if you wanted to inspect the brake shoes, you just took the wheel off. So in a long distance race, that would speed up servicing of the car. The other thing, another feature that a lot of people aren't aware of, the outside spokes don't run perfectly parallel with the rim. They're inclined inwards to direct cooling air into the brake drum.
Those little bits are all part of the unique. But let's come around to the cockpit here, because I think the dashboard has got some very unique finishing on it, doesn't it?
It sure does. Engine turning, and people who drove Trans Ams in the 70s and 80s would be very familiar with that. This is where the idea came from. And again, it's what we were saying a couple minutes ago. Bugatti didn't want to leave the dash unfinished. I think that was more for looks than anything else. But that engine turning is factory. That's the way they came out of the factory.
Sure. Well, let's take a look inside under the hood, because I'm sure he's left us some surprises there as well.
He has, actually. And we're better off looking around the other side.
We'll go around this side then.
Yeah. So the only thing holding this hood down is these two leather straps.
Just a second.
Oh. Okay, so notice this hole first in the side of the hood. That's for the blower relief valve. This is a supercharged engine. Thanks,
And
Ward.
you'll notice the cloth that has been laid out to make sure we don't get any scratches.
That's right. So this is a big Roots type supercharger down here. There's a carburetor on its underside, which you really can't see, an updraft carburetor. And this is what blows through that hole in the hood. This is like a wastegate in a modern turbocharger. When intake manifold pressure gets too high, there's a spring-loaded valve there, and it just expels through the hole in the hood.
Now, that's a 4-cylinder?
That's an 8-cylinder.
8-cylinder, so it's
Yep.
1 spark plug per cylinder, as we can see on the side there. But what I really appreciate is the believe it or not, the contrasting colors. He's even used contrasting metal, copper, bronze, those kinds of things.
And leather.
Yes, true too, yes.
These are actually leather shock absorbing joints in the drive to the supercharger, and you see them as well in the drive to the magneto.
Yes.
So here's your ignition, the magneto that sticks out the center of the dash, driven off the rear end of the camshaft.
My goodness.
And
And this drive shaft, this pulley here is for the...
is driving the tachometer.
Ah,
Again, basically coming off the camshaft.
right. And a very unique rear view mirror mount.
Yep, again, a Bugatti feature. That's the way they all came out of the factory.
That's right. This is an absolutely gorgeous piece of automotive art, but also technological, I hate to use the word superlative, but for its day, it certainly was.
These were the best balanced cars on the Grand Prix circuit. They were never the most powerful,
Nope.
never the fastest in terms of top speed, but overall, this was the car that a lot of real good drivers wanted to be driving.
Yes. And thank you for sharing this with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you. I'm here with Dwight Schalbach, who is the owner of a very special and very unique vehicle, a Duesenberg. So Dwight, I mean, this vehicle is unique. You don't see many Duesenbergs, at least you don't see them on the road, but you certainly see them in museums, but they've got a huge history, don't they?
Yeah. They only made 481. All the chassis were built in 1929. And when they would send them to the body manufacturer, that would be the year they titled them. This car is J436, so they started at 100. So they go by the J numbers.
So who's the coach builder then? Who made the coach work?
This car here, Legrand, is Legrand body, and it was made by Union Body Company in New York. And it's a dual cowl Legrand.
What's a dual cowl mean?
Well, the front windshield is one cowl, and this back windshield is the dual cowl. That's the second cowl, so they call it a dual cowl.
So the chauffeur would be sitting here, and the owner or the passengers would be sitting in the back.
That's correct.
Unless the owner decided to drive.
Yeah, the door opens up, this raises up so they can get in. Will you hold down?
And that's heavy.
So the ladies could get in here, and they got a little roller there to put their feet on. They put their lipstick on here and makeup.
Now, what's the engine in it?
It's made by Lacomian, and E.L. Cord, who ended up owning Cord Duesenberg and Auburn, he ended up owning Lacomian Engine Company. It's a 405 cubic inch engine with 265 horsepower.
Wow.
And some of them had superchargers, and they gave it about 30 more horsepower.
Right. A straight inline
Straight
engine?
eight, dual
Straight eight.
overhead cams.
Right. Well, in a day when Ford flatheads kind of were the classic design for automobiles, Duesenberg did it differently.
Yeah, and Ford was like 40 to 60 horsepower, where this is 265 horsepower.
My goodness, that is an engine.
That's the way it came from the factory.
That is just stunning.
Okay, so this is the distributor. This is the intake. The carburetor and the fuel comes up through here and goes to the engine. This is the fuel pump here. There's a generator. And this is a dual overhead cams. You see 2 sets of valve covers. And this is the Peugeot system. What this does, it oils the chassis automatically every 80 miles.
Remarkable.
And that's the tank over there for the oil for the Peugeot.
Right. What was the original price of a vehicle like this, just in those dollars? Any
About
idea?
$18,000 to $20,000.
So even in that day, it was a very exclusive and very expensive car.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money. I don't know how you calculate that. It might be, I don't know what it would be.
Well, let's just say it would be north of $1 million.
Yeah.
Well north, in US dollars.
Yeah. This car was actually bought by Rudolph Bauer. He was the curator for the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. And he came from Germany over before the war. And he actually ended up with 3 Duesenbergs.
Oh my.
And when he passed away, Bill Pettit Sr. in Louisa, Virginia bought all 3 of them and stored them until I bought it.
I see. Now, did you do the restoration on it?
We did. Yes.
Okay. And how long did that take?
2 years.
Okay. And there was a specialist restoration garage that did that.
We did it in our garage on my farm.
Okay.
Yeah. I had 2 people working pretty much full-time, not 100% full-time.
Now, there's probably a lot of engineering in here that you had to recover, ways of doing things that aren't done today. Did your
I had
staff
Bob
do that?
Barkham, who's been working with me over 40 years. He understands cars, and he knew all about this car. And it was the first one he had taken apart completely.
And that must have been a joy for him as well.
Oh, yeah. He did a great job.
Now, Duesenbergs were also heavily into racing, I believe, were they not?
They were. That's where they started. Augie and Fred Duesenberg started racing.
Yes.
And there's some of the race cars still around, too.
True. Yes. Yes. Now, obviously, you did not drive this up from Virginia, where you came.
No, we trailed it. But Friday we went on a tour, and that was about 80 miles.
Okay.
And we had a great time. The cars did great. We're running 65 miles an hour. I don't know what that is in kilometers.
That's about over 100 kilometers an hour. That's okay.
And they did fine.
That's great.
They really did.
So even though it's nearly 100 years old, it's still in great shape.
Great shape.
Yeah.
They just want to run, you know.
True. And it's a classic. It's an animal.
Yeah. This is the original motor, and it's got like 58,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And we cleaned it up when we restored it, but we didn't take it apart.
Wow. And it was like a Swiss watch, I'm sure, when it was built.
Keeps on ticking, like the engine.
Well, Dwight, really want to thank you for sharing this car with us. You obviously have a passion for Duesenbergs, and it's great that you're able to come up here to Cobble Beach and be a part of the Cobble Beach Concours. So thank you.
It's just been great. This is such a beautiful place, and I was able to play the golf course too.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I'm here with Seamus, who is a mechanic for this wonderful Peugeot. Yes, Peugeot, and it's absolutely pre-World War II, and if the color doesn't get you, just wait. This car's got a real story. Seamus, what year is this?
1938. It's a 1938 Peugeot 402 Darl'mat Special Sport Roadster.
Was it built for the racetrack or for road use?
This was built for road use, but because it's a Darl'mat, it has the same features as the racetrack cars do.
So like other vehicles of the period, you could, if you wanted to, take it to the racetrack.
You could, yes. Yeah, so with the Darl'mat modifications, it's an inline overhead valve 4-cylinder engine. The Darl'mat modifications has got 2 Solex carburetors. They jetted it accordingly. And it has a Cotel French transmission in it. It's like a pre-selector, but you don't really pre-select. You just shift the gear and it shifts on its own. Use electromechanical system.
So kind of like an early automatic transmission.
Yes, yeah. It was very popular in the 30s.
Sure.
Even Americans experimented, like Cord with the pre-select transmission.
Right. Now, where did this? What's the heritage of this car? Where was it? It was built obviously in France.
Yes. They built them for Le Mans racing, the 24-hour at Le Mans. So the year before, they were on a 302 chassis, and at Le Mans they placed second, third, and fifth. There were 3 cars inducted, and then in '38 they moved them to a 402 chassis. It was lighter and more nimble performance, and they won first in their 2-liter class and 5th overall, which is pretty impressive.
So how did this car get to North America?
So in 1961, it came from Britain to an owner in Canada, and he started a restoration on it but never finished it. And then in the 1970s, a father and son bought it, and it got shipped to California, and they continued to do some restoration work on it but never finished it. And then in 2016, Mark Hyman acquired it and commissioned the restoration. I don't know who did the restoration on it, but I know there was a company in Chicago that did the paint work on it, and my boss purchased it from Mark Hyman in about 2018, so we've had it for about 5 years now. And this is the first show that we have brought it to.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, this is its debut then?
I guess so. Mark showed it at Hilton Head, I believe.
Right.
A few years ago.
But this is in this form and at this finish. Cobble Beach is the premiere.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. Aside from the race car heritage, what else makes this car unique?
So Porto was a dealer for Peugeot, and he was one of the few that was known to coach build Peugeots. So this is a Porto design. Well, the guy who designed it, Paul, and Paulin, was one of his designers. He designed this special sport Darl'mat Roadster, and they made 53 of these, and there's about 30 left.
Well, it certainly has that French je ne sais quoi, as they say.
Very sexy curves.
Oh, absolutely. Flowing lines and really tasteful use of chrome. But let's take a look under the hood. What's it look like?
Gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please.
His inline 4-cylinder, 1,991 cc, about 2 liter. The battery's not original. Originally had 2 6 volts in series, but they're really expensive, so we just switched batteries between cars, and this is a 12-volt Optima. It's got 2 Solix carburetors that are jetted accordingly. So here you can see the very flowy 30s Art Deco flowing lines coming to the end, and this would be, if you were in second place behind this at Le Mans, it sure wouldn't be a bad
you'd
look.
Know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Seamus. Much appreciated.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
We are at the reveal of 2 very special Cadillac models. Jamie, what are we looking at?
What are we looking at? 2 special models like you mentioned. First, the all-electric Cadillac Escalade IQ. Again, we're taking an iconic nameplate in Escalade and reimagining it, taking it all electric and taking it into Cadillac's all-electric future. On the other side of Escalade, we have the ultra-high luxury, ultra-bespoke, low volume Cadillac Celestiq. Again, all-wheel drive, all electric, and hand built, actually just outside Detroit towards the end of this year and into next year is when we'll start doing that.
Now, you spoke earlier of bespoke. What's that mean?
Bespoke means what our customers want in the vehicle they will get. They have full control over choices of color inside, on the inside and the exterior. As an example, we have a palette of well over 100 colors that they can choose from. If they maybe don't come in with an idea, but if a customer came in with a shade of blue that was on their grandmother's dress that they hold dear to them, we can replicate that color for them. And then it goes beyond that. There'll be interior customization options, wheel choices, you name it. This will be a vehicle where each Celestiq is going to be a one of one.
Quite remarkable. Now,
Yep.
Cadillac has a historic reputation for engineering leading in the automotive industry. Is this the next step?
Absolutely. We see ourselves as a leader in the electric space. All the cars that we're looking at today come jam-packed full of segment leading or segment first technology. The Escalade and the Celestiq feature GM Super Cruise, which was the first true hands-free driving technology offered in a vehicle. The Celestiq has a 4-panel electrochromatic roof that you can adjust the opacity of each individual quadrant as each passenger desires. Those are just 2 examples of the tech that goes into these cars that's going to really take us in the future and be leaders.
I've also noticed the dashboard is totally different from anything that's in anything on the current market.
Yeah.
55 inches, I think?
55 inches. Both vehicles feature 55 inches pillar-to-pillar LED screens on the front. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of digital displays in either vehicle.
And there's full entertainment for rear seat passengers as well.
Yep, absolutely. 12-inch screens in the rear of both vehicles as well. That again provide customers a pretty comfortable and relaxing and enjoyable ride as they head down the road.
When can we expect to see these vehicles in Canada?
Yeah, so the both vehicles, we expect Canadian production to start at some point early next year. And then, as we get into the summer and fall months, you'll probably start to see the first on the road. Maybe a little more IQs than Celestiqs, but either way, they'll be beautiful when they're out there.
So about a year from maybe next year at Cobble Beach, we'll see some on the road.
Maybe, yep, absolutely.
All right,
Yep.
Jamie, thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. I'm with Phil Hatfield of Milton, Ontario, and we have 2 very unique Canadian cars. Both are McLaughlin Buicks. The first one is what, Phil?
Well, this is a top-of-the-line 1923. It's 100 years old this year, as the other one is as well. 1923 McLaughlin Buick. It was a rolling chassis that came from Buick in Michigan, and it came to Oshawa as a rolling chassis, just bare bones, and McLaughlin were the coach builders.
Right.
So you paid to have a standard coach put on, or you paid extra money to have the extra bits and pieces put on. And this, at its time, this was a top-of-the-line McLaughlin Buick.
So this would be the equivalent of a limousine or a high-end car back in 1923.
Oh yes,
Okay.
definitely.
So, but it's got things that are typical for today, like rubber tires, but wooden spokes.
Yes, yep. That was an option at the time. They were starting to switch over from the wooden to the metal wheels, but you could still get these up for a couple more years after that.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
and those are the original wheels as well.
Well made.
Yeah, and they as long as you keep the moisture level up, they stay.
Fine.
They're fine.
And of course, in those days, you always had to have 2 spare tires.
Well, it's a good idea. The roads were not the same shape as they are now, and their flats were quite common.
Quite common.
Yeah.
Quite common indeed.
Normal gasoline.
Yep.
And
Yes,
this was restored just over 20 years ago.
Okay. And
Yeah.
it's obviously a convertible with ash. With wooden.
Yeah, they call it a drop head at the time.
Right, exactly.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's right. Hardwood, and you fold it down during the good days, the good
And
weather days.
that is not a window,
Oh yes.
is it? Oh yes, it is. It looks like a mirror, but it's a
Well,
window.
the bevel fools
The
you.
bevel fools you.
As is the back one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I see you've got your initials sort of.
Well, yeah. Dad and I have a collection of vehicles.
Yes.
And we have a gentleman. My name is Rolly. He's our painter.
Yes.
And whenever we finish a vehicle or we buy the vehicle, we put the anagram there. It's Roger and Eleanor Hadfield.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And I see also that we've got you're running right now.
Yes.
And your dad, you started it because I heard it start. But you were fiddling a fair bit. Is it tricky to start?
No, this one is just about perfect, but you get used to working in the spark and the gas and ready for anything because you don't know whether your vacuum tank is going to kick in. So you're ready for anything at the first start.
On the steering wheel, you have a combination of ignition,
Yes.
and you have throttle,
Yeah.
and down here you have choke,
Yeah.
right? And you're dealing with that variable plus the fuel and the temperature. There are a lot of variables.
A lot more variables than we take in our
That's right.
push the button and away it goes
That's
kind of
right. Yeah,
vehicle,
quite
right?
different.
Yeah.
Don't even do that.
How about opening the hood so we can
Sure.
have a look at the running engine, because that's always a good thing to see. It's very smooth, very smooth.
This is a vacuum tank. It runs off the vacuum coming off from the intake manifold.
Right, yeah.
So this has a negative pressure, and there's a baffle inside there. And when it gets to a certain point, the negative pressure will suck fuel from the tank into this tank, and then it's gravity fed to the carburetor down there.
Right, right.
Not bad for 100 years old.
Very robust. Okay, let's move over to the other vehicle that you've got here.
Okay.
And let's talk about this.
This is a 1923 McLaughlin, and it is an auto track, automobile tractor combination. And they made these through various kits that were available to buy after World War I, when parts were scarce and the economy was hard. And also after in 1929 during the Great Depression, the same thing happened when farmers had to make do. So they found old cars and they bought these auto track kits from various companies, and they made it a farm vehicle. They stripped everything that didn't have to be on the vehicle, and they beefed up the suspension and the.
Get right in on the suspension there. Yes, that's massive.
It's a lot heavier, and just after the normal transmission, they put a truck back end on it, a differential, and it's a high-low gear.
Right.
So you can go, instead of having only 3 speeds ahead, you have 6 speeds ahead.
The Cobble Beach Concours would like
I really like your horn. You want to beat that horn?
That's a good one. So in bull low, in first gear low, you could plow a field or work in the field and that.
Yeah.
I've had a little fun with this. I restored it right from scratch. I built a nice little deck on the back. There were no instruments in it because they took them out when they the kit in. So I put a couple different instruments in
Well,
there.
I see you've got these are not standard. That's an aviation altimeter, is it not?
This is a vertical speed indicator, and that's an altimeter. Dad and I are both pilots as well. So.
No, this thing won't fly, but it will pull. Have you used this actually to plow?
Yeah, it's a farm vehicle.
But have you used to?
No. I just finished this about a month ago.
Ah, okay.
And it's everything works in it.
Yeah.
You can see it's the same system.
Yes, the same vacuum kind of system. I also know that you don't have a starter. Well, you have a starter, but it's an electric starter.
Well, it came with a starter originally, but that was taken out.
Right.
I have the hand crank. You can use a hand crank, but this starter works a little more efficiently, and there's less chance of busting up your knuckles as well.
Well, for sure. And just if we don't get a picture of that, it's an electric drill.
Yeah,
a big electric drill.
A big dual drill. It fits into the crankshaft. And it works very well. And you'll notice the bumper is used for pushing things around the farm.
Right, sure.
And his name's Sam because in tribute to Sam McLaughlin.
Of course. And Sam McLaughlin was, of course, originally his family were farmers in the Oshawa area.
Yeah, well, his father, George McLaughlin, ran a carriage works. He was a coach builder starting about 1860 or so.
Yes.
So they turned from a coach work into the automobile
industry, and away we go.
That's it. Yeah.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to see both of these vehicles, and a really interesting piece of Canadian history.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure showing it.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm here with Mark Harrell, and we've got another piece of Canadian history here. Another McLaughlin Buick, but it's a lot older. This one is from 1910.
Correct. That is correct.
And this is a very different car from other cars we've seen. Tell us a bit about it.
Well, I mean, this is really the embodiment of a horseless carriage. And, you know, Sam McLaughlin was a carriage builder. That was his focus, and he had built exquisite carriages and started to get concerned that the horseless carriage was going to put him out of business. And he was looking for a way to keep the legacy going And so he ended up creating a partnership with Billy Durant, who was starting up Buick and working towards General Motors, and started to buy the engine, chassis, drivetrain are Buick, and the upper portion is all McLaughlin. So I sort of say this car has two personalities because it's got a little American, but it's predominantly Canadian. And he really focused on the details of the car that he was building. So things like, you know, an all-wood windshield. Although interestingly enough, the windshield was an extra.
Really? Interesting.
So for $38, you could add a windshield to your $1,350 car, which was very expensive in those days.
And it has a wooden frame.
It's a wooden frame.
But brass trim.
Yes. And all these cars, back in 1910, the cars were all brass because that was the material that they knew how to, it was moldable and mealable.
Yeah, because brass is relatively soft and
it
can
was,
be worked.
they could form it and do things and do the detail like these lamps.
Yeah.
Now all the lamps on this car are from Chadwick Brothers in Hamilton, Ontario. And Chadwick Brothers were around almost till the 2000s, but they had become an electric supply company. But they got their early start building gas lamps and oil lamps for the automotive industry. So again, the car is Canadian with real local history.
And do they work?
Absolutely.
Okay,
all the lights work. And this is, I mean, we restored this car in 1989. When I got the car, it was in bushel baskets. And we had to, you know, jigsaw puzzle it all back together again. And with the help of Peter Fawcett and Fawcett Motors in Whitby, Ontario, we were able to get it together. But all of this, it's wood. This is a wood body car. There's no skin on it. So it's all just, the wood has been perfectly formed and smoothed and then painted.
We have to hear the horn. There we go.
There you
we go.
A lot of people think it's Auga, but that didn't come until the 30s.
Right,
so
right.
This kind of predates that by a lot. But so this was would be a good family car. Even the top was an extra, so that was a $70 extra, but included all of the side curtains just to help close it up in the rain.
Originally, what were those? That's plastic, because I suspect. But what were they would originally been made of?
Like a cellulite.
Right.
So essentially like a plastic, but it was sort of a very early plastic.
Very early plastic. I also see it's been, you had pinstriping, all detail.
And again, that was part of the detail.
Yeah.
And some of the other detail that you would notice is that, like, he really did detail woodworking with just little add-ons that you wouldn't see on like a standard Buick car, because this was more of the high-end type of a vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's a 22 horsepower, and actually drives very well because this one has the 4 elliptical springs, gives you a good ride, and it's a bit of a heavy car.
Because it's wood.
Because it's wood.
Sure.
And it actually has a very heavy engine and big flywheel, and it has a secondary inside frame just for the engine, and then an outside frame for the whole car. So you've sort of got the double chassis in that.
Yeah. And of course, in those days, you would not run this in the winter. It would be summer only.
Yeah, cars in 1910 were essentially a summer luxury because they hadn't yet invented antifreeze, so you can't have water sitting in the radiator, and they hadn't invented the snowplow yet. That wasn't to come for about another decade or two.
Sure.
Although with the thin wheels, very high, it actually can cut through the snow and you know, sort of get through just like a carriage would. But this is very much a carriage body. It has, you know, other little details are like the little half doors that you wouldn't normally see on some of the cars of the time.
Right.
The nameplates, all leather seats, made just as they would a carriage. So it's horsehair in behind.
Right.
To give it the fill.
Can you open the hood?
Yeah, we will.
Because I think that's what people would love to see. What's it like inside?
Well, I think we should come around to this side because I think this side shows very interestingly in that. So this is a 4-cylinder open valve car.
Ah, so the valve train is above and it's exposed to
It's exposed. So the car comes with a little oil can because you've got to put a drop of oil in each one of those little spots.
Yes.
Before you drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, then it splashes oil all over the place. But this car had a water pump. It has the magneto, which gives it the spark for driving. But it's 2 sets of 2 cylinders each, so 2 matching sets of 2 cylinders.
So a mechanic today could look at that and have it recognize what it is and how it would work.
Part of the reason I got into very old cars was that, you know, it is an internal combustion engine, but without all that extra that you would have on a modern car.
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't go under the hood of a modern car, but I have no problem pulling it apart.
No computers, nothing like that.
No radio on the dash.
Of course, radio was still in its infancy back then too.
It probably would have been the size of the vehicle.
Probably.
But there was, you know, it's very, very basic.
Yeah.
But this car is a 2-speed car. So when this car, once you have to crank it to start. There's no other way.
Yes.
Your gas is actually up here.
Yes.
And your spark advance is up here as well because there's no distributor cap. So you set the distributor, and then to get started, you step on the slow speed, and that gets you moving. And then once you get to about 5 kilometers an hour, then you push the high, and it just locks the 2 cones together that has a leather belt on it.
Oh my goodness.
And you're off and running, and it will take you about 45 kilometers an hour was sort of what we drive, and comfortable.
Well, that is absolutely incredible. It's a great piece of living history, and wonderful that you can be here at Cobble Beach. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
A pleasure to have you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
I'm here with Jeff Spratt, and we have something a little newer. This is a 1970 AMC AMX. Jeff, tell us about your car.
Well, it's a 390 AMC AMX. It has the shadow mask.
And that means it's got a black hood, right?
Black hood, black engine compartment. It has quite a few options. It doesn't have air conditioning, but it has the rally pack dash, tinted windows, 4-speed manual.
And in 1970, these were considered performance cars.
Yes.
And the 390 was a very big performance engine, as I recall.
Yeah, it wasn't as big as the 454 Chevys or the 427s, but it held its own for sure.
Yeah.
And the drag racing community.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this engine, it was how it came from the showroom.
Yes.
So everything on here is absolutely stock.
Stock factory.
And you could take this car and run it on the drag strip and have a respectable time.
Yeah, about 13 seconds. Probably about 107 or 8 miles an hour.
That's pretty respectable.
Very respectable, yeah.
And it would probably run on premium gas.
No, actually.
Really?
I run premium in it, but it will run just totally fine on regular grade.
Right. Now, you said this is the rally mask or a blackout mask.
Yeah, they call it the shadow mask.
Right.
Yes.
So, but the color is very, very unique. Let's come around this way a little bit. The color is very unique. It's a very vibrant green.
It is. It's called Big Bad Green. They had 3 big bad colors in 67 to 70, and there was Big Bad Green, blue, and orange.
Yes, I remember those. Now, along the bottom, you've got pipes.
It's a chambered exhaust system.
Okay.
It's very similar to what the Corvettes had on them in the same era.
So it would certainly make a rumble.
It is very loud. It's too loud.
Now, did you drive this up or did you?
No, I trailered it. Yeah.
Okay, because that would certainly you'd be deaf.
Yeah, and it tends to blow a lot of dirt up from the curbs,
okay,
and it ends up in the interior compartment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the thing about the interior is it's only a 2-seater, is it not?
It is. So what they did was they took a Javelin, and they shortened the chassis by 12 inches. So what you see back here is an area they could put a seat, but there's nowhere for your feet.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
that's, Dick Teague, he was the chief designer in AMC at the time. And this is what he did with the Javelin to make it a little sportier and also make it America's only other two-seater.
Right, yes.
Other than the Corvette.
And it's also got a performance Hurst shifter.
Yes, they came with a Hurst shifting unit.
Yeah, so it's a 4-speed?
Is a 4-speed.
4-speed transmission manual. And I see the radio is AM.
AM.
Only AM.
Yeah, only AM. You could get an AM FM.
Yes.
You get it with an 8-track also, but they're very hard to find in good shape.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You have to do a lot of searching, and they're very expensive too.
I'm sure.
If you can find one.
I'm sure. But now even the tires are different because they've got a red stripe.
That was part of the AMX package, the Go Pack. Came with red lines.
Instead of white walls, it's red stripe.
Red stripe.
Now let's take a look inside the trunk.
Absolutely.
Because I think that shows something that you don't see on today's cars. Let's take a look at the spare here. Why don't you come over this way? And that's a very different spare, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called a Space Saver. The trunks were very small to begin with, so they wanted a spare tire system that didn't take up a lot of space.
So that's an original?
That is an original.
We're not going to try and use it as a
I've
spare
never
tire.
inflated it because once it's inflated,
Yeah.
you'll never get it back to where it is.
Exactly, exactly. So,
But it comes with an air container to inflate it.
yes.
And yeah,
But that's how it was in
that's how it was.
1970.
That's right.
Sure.
The backup light unit was the same unit used on a Javelin,
Yes.
but the only difference is they put the AMX lettering there. They're very hard to find. They don't reproduce them right now. So to find a good used NOS one is very difficult now.
Yes. And new NOS is new old stock.
New old stock,
Yeah.
yes sir.
Let's come around here and take a look at the
You can open the door if you like.
Sure. I'm opening the door and it didn't fall off. Now, which plant were these built in?
They were built in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Sure.
Alongside of the Rambler Scrambler.
Yeah. And that's the red, white, and blue Rambler with the same engine.
Same engine, same drivetrain,
Same
pretty well.
drivetrain, and
Yeah.
that was another very fast drag car for the 1970s.
Yes, it did very well on the drag strip. for
Sure. And how long have you had this vehicle?
I've had this about 16 years now.
Yeah. Well, it's in excellent shape, and this is your first time at Cobble Beach?
Yes.
Great. Well, I'm hoping you're enjoying the experience.
I love it. I came last year with a friend and we just walked the field, and I said to my friend Dan, I said, I think I have a car that they might even accept into the show. So I submitted a proposal and some pictures, and they said, bring it on down. So
Great. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Take
that.
care.
Take care. Have a great day, guys.
I'm with William Halkew, who is from Toronto, and we have a very unique and special car here at Cobble Beach, a Lamborghini Countach?
Countach.
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 Gotta get it right. It's Countach. And what's so special about this vehicle?
The Countach was essentially a revolutionary car that kind of took the auto industry by storm. And for the late 70s, early 80s, when it was produced right into its 25-year history, it was a trailblazer. It was outrageous. It was insane. In many ways, it was totally impractical. But it represents, I think, a major earmark and transition in automotive history, which kind of makes it an important part of the big picture.
Sure. Now, this is a very fast car as well.
Yeah, it's 375 horsepower. It's a V12, 12 cylinders. And however, it's only 4 liters. So it's not a massive engine, but it's a very powerful, well-tuned, and incredible engine that will catapult you from 0 to 100 in a very short period of time, and probably a top speed of 160, 175 miles per hour.
That's fast.
Yeah, especially for 1980.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's take a walk around the vehicle. Now, I noticed that it's got a European license plate. Does that mean it came from Europe originally?
So, this car is very, very interesting because in terms of its history, this car was first purchased by Sheikh Walid Jafali and brought it to Jeddah, where his business office was. So he had this car there, and he essentially drove it between London, Paris, and Monte Carlo. So what I did is I have the benefit of keeping various elements of the car, such as a sticker from the parking area of the Monte Carlo Beach Club, as well as
yes, I see
parking
that.
permits for England and France.
Yes.
And what happened was that after 9 years or 10 years of ownership, he had befriended a gentleman whose name I'm supposed to keep secret, but he was an Italian national who was a car collector from Paris, France. And he had a collection of very important and exotic cars that he stored in an underground bunker in Paris. He was also a mechanic and aficionado. So a year before he purchased the car, he became friends with Jafali. He convinced Jafali to sell him the car, and he owned the car for a total of 30 years, keeping it very quiet, very to himself, and was never put in any registry or any website or anything like that. He took it to local car shows.
Basically flew under the radar.
It flew under the radar,
Sure.
and he only put a total of, in 30 years approximately, I'm going to say, yeah, about 2,800 kilometers on
Oh my
it. So
goodness.
the current odometer reading on the car is approximately 11,800 kilometers. So my son Dane, being a car aficionado, was able to source this car through a broker that he had a working relationship with in Belgium. We found out about this car, and one thing led to another, and we ended up purchasing the car. Took delivery of it 3 years ago, and quite honestly, I was blown away because the car was essentially untouched. So the tires you see on the car right now are brand new. They were just installed in the last month. The original tires on the car still had date codes of early 1979, which is consistent with brand new tires fitted on a 1980 car. The car was totally original in every sense of the word, subject to the great big wings that they put on the Countaches. And he decided to do that through his dealer, Portman, in the UK, and it was a factory feature. So as a result of the fact that the car was originally taken, it was delivered without the wing, I opted to have the wing removed by my guy in Chicago, and I'll store it, I'll put it on the wall, I'll keep it just for purposes of history and provenance. But it was amazing, but I prefer the beauty and elegant lines of the car without the wing. So that's the reason I got rid of it.
Now, is the paint original?
So this is the other interesting thing. The paint was absolutely original. Everything was original. As I said, tires. The only thing non-original on the car was the battery.
Okay.
So for a few years, I had to kind of decide what I was going to do, and I decided to consult with my friend, Skip McCabe, who is a major restorer and has got Pebble Beach experience in the United States. So he's from Chicago. He said, "Bill, bring the car down to me. I'll have to do what I have to do to assist you in making the decision." And we came to a decision because the paint was tired, that no matter how hard you scrubbed and rubbed and removed the tiny dents and the scratches, it would still look tired.
Yeah.
And he recommended that under no circumstances should I take the car apart, should he take the car apart, but just do a very gentle and appropriate respray of the car. So the car is resprayed in its original color. The seats were absolutely original. They were perfect, subject to small little spider cracks, which just took away. Yeah, the leather was still supple, but it showed its wear. So what he did is he did a very special process of applying a perfect, correct colored dye, which would still retain the suppleness of the leather. So if you look at the dashboard, that's an interesting material that is called mouse hair. And the reason they call it mouse hair is because if you were to pet a mouse, which I don't know how many people would actually have the opportunity to do that, but you would probably get the sensation of a very thin, soft hair, thus the name mouse hair. So the amazing thing about this vehicle is that it has its original mouse hair. I've had a number of vehicles that are 20, 30 years old where the mouse hair is destroyed as a result of temperature fluctuation, as a result of the sun shining through, and as a result of age. Because this was in an underground bunker for 30 years, the mouse hair is beautifully preserved, and I understand it was also climate controlled.
Oh my,
so
yes.
it looks as nice as it did when it came out of the factory, you know, in Italy back in 1980. So the car is entirely original. So I look at it in terms of, I bought it a new dress, I bought it new shoes, which are the tires.
Of course.
And I could not drive on those tires because they were about to explode. So, you know, but I have the original tires, I have the original wing, and what you're looking at is a largely, totally undestroyed, unfettered original car, subject to what you're looking at right here. So a lot of people will say, hey, this car is just so gorgeous, but look at the engine compartment. It kind of looks dirty, it looks tired, it looks, you know, weathered or whatever used.
Yeah,
but here is the whole object of the exercise. Remember, a vehicle, a car can only be original once.
Yes, that's right.
And it would have been very easy for me to just say, hey, Skip, remove the engine, put in all new components, paint this, do that, redo the wiring, but it just would not be the same. So what do you do with an engine with only 11,800 kilometers on it that runs perfectly, has perfect compression, every single gauge works, and every single electrical element, which is typically problematic in these cars, works perfectly? So, you know, let's avoid censorship and let's make it abundantly clear. You don't F with something that is already good and perfect. So with that said, if your wife has wrinkles, enjoy her wrinkles because she's a beautiful woman, but don't give her a full facelift and Botox because it's going to take away from her beauty.
Absolutely.
So that's sort of, you know, forgive me for talking in that vein, but it's just, that's the sort of reality trip on this situation.
Yeah.
I'm owner number 3. I've had the car for 3 years, and it was just sent to Skip McCabe in Chicago, just came back, and this is what you're looking at today. And this is really the debut and the renaissance of a very special car, which is, I should say, what I would suggest is the best incarnation, the most original incarnation of this car, because it's called a low body. And they only built 155 low bodies in 3 series. But in fact, actually, they built 3 series, but only Series 1 and Series 2 were referred to as low body. And this is the Series 2, and there were only 105 low bodies in Series 2. So it's very rare, very unusual, very original, and what you see is what you get.
And it's an absolutely beautiful example of Lamborghini's craftsmanship and their work and a particular period of automotive history, and which we're celebrating at Cobble Beach today. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for telling us
My
the story
pleasure entirely.
of your
Absolutely.
beautiful vehicle. And is this your first time at Cobble?
No, it's about my 7th or 8th time.
Well,
so
then you're a veteran.
I'm a veteran, and I've sort of learned my lesson, because the first time I got a car in here was the 2nd year at Cobble, and I brought a Dino Ferrari, but it just got worked on by Skip, and I should have looked at it mechanically. And as soon as I brought it out here and the judges wanted me to start it up, it wouldn't start it up, and he said, sorry, Mr. Hallcue, you're disqualified, but it sure as hell looks bitchin' on the field. So I learned my lesson, and next year I brought my Ford GT, which is a winner. It won the category, and it started up first time every time. But I think the McLeese, and I do want to say that the McLeese family, they're an amazing family. What they've created here in Cobble is the Canadian version of Pebble Beach. A pebble is small, a cobble is big, and this is big, this is special. That family really knows how to put on a show. Bless them all, and may it only get better every year.
I'm with Glenn McMullen of Belleville, Ontario, and we're going to talk to you about the first-in-class winner of the Corvette class. And Corvette is one of the featured marquees here at Cobble Beach. Glenn, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is this your first time at Cobble Beach?
Yes, it is.
Wow, that must be something very special.
Well, yes, it is. I'm quite surprised.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Now, tell us about your vehicle. This is a 1967 Corvette.
Yes, yes. I've had it 4 years. It'll be 4 years in November.
Sure.
I bought it from a guy north of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And he had it pretty well restored. I've did a little bit of stuff to it since I've got it, but I was quite surprised to get an invitation to come here, and then to win was quite a bit of a surprise.
Well, what makes this particular year of Corvettes so special, this particular vehicle so special?
Well, I think mainly because it's a North American built sports car, where a lot of the cars you'll see here, a lot of the sports cars are European built, and this has always been an American built sports car.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been a fan of Corvettes. This is the 5th one I've owned, and I like the style and the performance of them.
Sure, sure. Now this has, is an L79. What does that mean?
It's a 327, 350 horse.
So it's a performance engine.
That's right.
Now, that's all stock. That's pretty much how it came as restored.
Yeah, it would have been exactly the way it come out of the factory.
Right, right. There's this nice bit of chrome.
Yep, yep. Everything would be exactly that way. All the chrome, all the stainless you see.
Yes.
Everything would be that way when it come right out of the dealer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, have you had this vehicle on the road?
Of course. Oh yes, yes. I drive it. Now I didn't drive it up here, and I didn't drive it to Bloomington, Illinois. I took it to a show down there the end of May, 1st of June.
Mm-hmm.
For the simple reason it's a little far to drive from Belleville. It's about 700 miles there. It's about 300, maybe 200 miles, 250 miles up here. You need some way to get back and forth to the motel and restaurants, and you never know, like you can see the weather like it is. If it turns muddy, you don't really want to be turning in the mud.
Or if you have a flat or mechanical breakdown, you're not going to find a good mechanic, are you?
That's right. I do all the mechanical work pretty well myself,
right,
but it's pretty hard to carry a toolbox and everything with you.
Especially if we can look in the back, there isn't much space.
No,
can I open the door?
Sure, go ahead. But I drive the car to all the local shows at home, and
yes,
that's the fun of owning it.
Yes.
If I can't drive it, then it's not worth having it for me.
Sure.
It's not a trailer queen. It's not trailer to all the events. It's drove to the events.
How many miles are on it right now?
I think it just turned 1,700.
Wow.
But what they did is when they did the body off frame restoration, they turned it back to 0, so it started at 0. So.
And the engine is still original?
No, it was rebuilt at the time.
Okay.
But the mileage on these cars, you can never tell. Some of them, they replaced the speedometers when they did a complete restoration.
Right.
This one here, they might have replaced the speedometer, I'm not sure, but I think they've just restored the speedometer and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, when they do a body off frame restoration, they quite often will turn it back to 0, so you're starting out with basically a new car.
Sure, sure. Well, it's quite a remarkable vehicle in its own right. Now, am I right that this has a fiberglass body?
Yeah, the whole body's fiberglass.
Right, right, which has made it kind of unique. Yeah, it's got the touch. I didn't have the touch, sorry.
Oh no, it's an old car. This is the only year, 67 is the only year that they had this color blue. It's Elkhart blue.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have it in 66 or any other year.
Right, right. And I see you've got the correct year plate on your vehicle as well.
That's right, that's right.
And that's the Confederation plate here in Ontario.
That's right, and that's legal. That's not just put on there for show. I drive it with that plate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I went through all the ministry to get it all legal.
It's a beautiful car. It's a wonderful specimen of the Corvette, and it's a pleasure to have you here to share it with us.
Well, I was happy to be invited, but I never expected to win. But As you can see, I'm in a hard class to win, but I was fortunate here, so.
Well done, and best wishes. Have a safe trip home.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today at Cobble Beach for the Cobble Beach Concours d'Elegance.